Notice of this meeting has been provided as specified in the act. Proper notice of this meeting was posted on October 8th, 2009. Said notice was also posted at the entrance of the Board of Education offices, mailed to the Nutley Sun, the Star Ledger, North Jersey Herald, the News, and the Nutley Journal, mailed to the Nutley Township Clerk. This is an official meeting. Formal action will be taken. Please stand for a moment of silence and the flag.
Dr. Casal, we also add, because today is December 7th, in honor of everyone that died at Mortal Island. So noted.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll.
Mr. Francola.
Here.
Mr. Cookta.
Here.
Mr. Mascardola.
Here.
Present. Mr. Riley. Mr. Rogers.
Here.
Mr. Russo.
Here.
Mr. Sauter.
Here.
Mr. Sposano.
Here.
Mr. Sal.
Here.
Okay, tonight being the first meeting, official meeting of the month, in keeping with our new policy of the full board being the academic committee as a whole, we will have another academic report which includes a progress on curricular development. So, Mr. Zarin.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Doctor. We're very excited about the curriculum renovations that are occurring. I'd like to thank Mr. Klitschko and Mrs. Clerico for heading this up. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank all of our administrators and staff for working very hard on this very complex project, which will reap benefits really for years to come by mapping the entire curriculum throughout the entire district. That being said, I'd like Mr. Klitschko and Mrs. Clerico to make a presentation to everyone this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present what we have done and the committee has done so far this year. I'm going to just give a brief overview, and Mrs. Clerico will she has developed a PowerPoint presentation so that you can be aware of exactly seeing what's been going on. But we've had several meetings. We have another meeting set for this coming Monday, December 14th. It's an ongoing process, and if you see it in action, it really is impressive to see all our staff members involved in curriculum development. Mrs. Clerico and I have had several meetings with the facilitators prior to and then right after the curriculum revisions. We have a meeting set up this Wednesday to review with the facilitators where we're at and where we're going, so that there's no wasted time when we get into our meetings on Monday the 14th. I'm in communication with Mrs. Clerico, and I can tell you that she spent a lot of time with all the facilitators, making sure that everybody is on the same page. And when you see the presentation, you'll understand exactly what I'm leading to. She's given the facilitators many examples and templates in which to follow. The facilitators have been given classroom coverage to meet with other facilitators, so to pull this all together. And this has been an integral part of what we're doing, so that when we go into the curriculum revisions on that Monday, we can really hit the ground running. So that's kind of a brief overview, and Mrs. Clerico will take us through the nuts and bolts of exactly what has gone on in each of the sessions, and she has some examples so that you can understand exactly what we say with the template and so on and so forth. Ro?
I'm going to just turn that on in a second, but I just wanted to make mention a couple of things. Again, as Mr. Klitschko said, we were meeting at the high school, and this allows us to interact among one group with another so that we can assure vertical and horizontal alignment with the curriculum. Tonight, I just took one sample of the language arts curriculum, which I'll be showing you right now. Keeping in mind also, is it going to come on? Did it wake up? charge of technology for a while, I should know that. Here it is. This is a sample that I mentioned, and I was saying different segments of it the last time we met. What we're doing is taking the core curriculum content standards, and that's what you see, the very first one, when it talks about reading. That standard reaches all the way from kindergarten all the way through to the high school. The next thing we have is the big idea, and I mentioned that to you the last time, that the big idea is generally the focus of the theme of what we're talking about. And you can see the ability to read a variety of texts requires independence, comprehension, and fluency. And then we're using something that has been around for a while, and that's essential questions. So each and every one of the curricula areas will have the same template with the same components. And this is the first time that we're even touching guidance. We do a lot in our district. We are finally putting it down on paper and really pulling it all together. And that's only to name one. We have world languages, and I went through many of them the last time. Enduring understandings, it's pretty much answering the question, the essential question, and then we move on to the CPIs. Now, before the CPIs were really referred to as objectives. And CPIs are cumulative progress indicators. And I'll just give you a quick example. The first one, this is 3.1, which refers to the standard, 4th grade, and the CPI that we're working on is E1. Use knowledge of word meaning, language structure, and sound symbol relationships to check understanding when reading. Skills and activities. Now this is ideal. It's really an ideal situation. We have a new teacher coming in. They'll know exactly what skills to cover and the multidisciplinary approach that they're going to be taking, as well as technology. Also, it's going to be, as Mr. Zara said at our last meeting, he's going to put this up on our websites, so the parents will really know exactly what the children should be covering. Also, I'd like to mention that our 21st Century Life to Careers, those standards will be embedded into each curriculum. It's not a separate curriculum. It's really imperative that we prepare our students for the 21st century. They're also being known as the digital learner, and that's why the emphasis is definitely we're putting technology into our curriculum and infusing it throughout all the curriculums. Not to quote too many people, but there's a gentleman, Thomas Friedman, who said that our children will have anywhere between 10 and 17 careers by the time they're 35 years old. And that he also goes on to state that the 10 top careers haven't even been thought of yet, and that's in the future as well. So it's really our job not to just pigeonhole our students anymore, but to really provide a wide variety of activities for them. So again, those standards will be embedded in our curriculum. The teachers have been working very diligently. I commend the staff for their hard work. As Mr. Colicchio told you, the facilitators are meeting with me, some individually. We're really working through this. It is a different format, but one that's really, they've met the challenge, and I think it'll really bring all of our curriculum guides together. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that pretty much says it. I didn't get into curriculum mapping tonight, although I do have one to show you, and it's honors calculus. It's not completely finished, so I'm taking, let's see, if I can get to that very quickly. I just don't want you to think this is elementary. This is across the grade levels. And this is calculus honors class. Mr. Diamola just emailed this to me a couple of days ago. He didn't have a chance to put the standards in, but as you can see, we're going to be doing month by month. It's going to have all the skills. Again, this would be ideal for a parent to be able to view on the website. It'll give you exactly what your child would have to, I'm sorry, my back is to you, to cover in their classes, whether it's high school classes or elementary, kindergarten, and so forth. So we'll just be adding the standards. And again, he did September, and we're moving down into, you'll see, October and November. So it's It's a lot, but we're hoping to have this accomplished by the end of the school year, before the end of the school year. Anyone with any questions?
Questions?
I have a question for Mrs. Zara.
Yes.
Mrs. Zara, this is obviously a lot of hard work, and this is the kind of information we need to get out to the general public. Can we get copies of this presentation?
Yes, this presentation is probably a very minute insight into what's actually behind this really very aggressive initiative. We are mapping and revising our curriculums for every course offered in every elementary school, pre-K through 6th grade, the middle school, and the high school. It's really an all-encompassing endeavor. And when it is completed, and I have to mention Mrs. Francioso, our assistant superintendent who oversees curriculum, although she was ill, she is back and she has been in very close contact with Mrs. Clarko throughout this process. And actually the plans for this were put together over the summer in the anticipation for becoming very, very actively involved once the school year started. We think this is wonderful because what we're doing is we're reviewing curriculum, we're updating it, we're comparing it to the core curriculum content standards, and we're putting it in an easily understood format that, as Mrs. Clarko said, goals and objectives, the big idea, all of the related skills that we expect students to master. So it's wonderful, and we think this is going to be a model.
Well, we can get copies of that because these are answers to questions that we get at PTO meetings, and it's excellent work, and it's good, and it's something that the general public should know about.
Curriculum is the most important thing we do, beyond safety. Safety is certainly the first priority for students and staff, but beyond safety, curriculum is the lifeblood of the school district, and we're very excited about the efforts that are going into it and the results that we're going to see from these efforts. So I'd like to congratulate and thank Ro and John, and certainly everybody who's taken part in this, every staff member, OTs, PTs, speech, school nurses, guidance, every component of the school district is working on this.
Can you email that to us?
It's a work in progress, but we certainly will get whatever we have to.
Okay, thank you.
I think much of this is the result of the state's plan, is that true?
Well, the state core curriculum content standards.
What do you think the likelihood is that the scheme will change now that we have a new administration in Trenton?
Well, we've been in this for a long time.
That's right.
And we have seen so many different schemes, and I don't say schemes in a negative way, but views or philosophies as how curriculum is to be delivered. That's what it comes down to. What's your curriculum? How are you going to deliver it? And I think that there's always the opportunity for a new Commissioner of Education to come in and just have different priorities and go in a different direction. But I don't think the value of this initiative will be lost no matter what we receive regarding curriculum from the Commissioner of Education or the State Department of Education. I think this will have value that it's going to be standalone value, simply because it's going to serve our students and our staff in such a very, very positive way.
Well, I certainly hope so, because it looks like we put a lot of time into it.
Agreed.
And money.
Well, we've gotten away from the Saturday curriculum sessions, as you know, budgetary constraints. But thank you.
Mrs. Clark, you mentioned, I was happy to hear about integrating the technology into the curriculum, and I always like it when the end user should drive what the hardware and software is. And so the byproduct of this, will it be something that the board will have saying, here's our technology requirements going forward, and how it should be, so we can how it should be refreshed and factored into, it's hard budget times, but we can't fall behind on technology, the other, this is the engine, we can't let the rest of the train fall behind. So will that be one of the byproducts that we would get?
Actually, each committee will be making recommendations to the Board of Education, whether it's different technology that they need, software, textbooks, that will all be part of that will be the outcome of our meetings, our articulation meetings. And just to make mention, this month we are being reviewed again by USAC. So I have all the documentation to show the state that we've been working very diligently on these revisions.
Could there be some summary from the technology stuff, just so that
Sure.
we can have an idea of what we have to plan from the technology?
We do have a group working just on technology, but more so, that has to be, incorporated. The only way technology really works is if it's infused throughout every area of the curriculum.
Right. That's the end user, I call it the end user.
Right.
Is the academics, and then the
Yeah.
hardware and the applications have to support that. So you need to know what that is, what the requirements are. So if there's some kind of summary.
Sure, it definitely will be accompanied with that.
Yes.
Piggybacking on Mr. Kutch's thoughts on technology, I've been doing research on computer applications and when is the ideal time to teach keyboarding to the students. I feel we're doing a disservice by making them wait until high school to take computer applications. I think it's causing a scheduling nightmare. I'd love to see it down in the grammar school. The ideal time, most experts say, is between 5th and 7th grade. From my 2 older children, they had to have reports typed in 6th grade. So I don't understand how we're requiring them to type if we haven't taught them how to type at that point. By the time these kids hit high school, they're typing with one finger, and it's very difficult to get them to learn proper keyboarding techniques at that point. So I would like us to seriously look into getting computer applications out of the high school. I understand it's a district requirement, it's not a state requirement. We need to figure out a compromise. Would be moving it into the middle school, but ideally it belongs in the grammar schools. Perhaps integrating it as part of the library media class time and get these kids familiar with this much earlier from a school point of view because they're already on the computer. Kindergartners are already on the computer. So we have to seriously give that consideration. And I think now that we're doing a revision of the whole curriculum, it's vital that we start doing this now.
If I may respond, if we are going to consider this, now is the time. We will begin scheduling the high school and the middle school right after the holiday break. Early January, we start building that schedule, which is an ongoing process to schedule every student in the middle school and the high school, and that will be completed somewhere late spring, and then tune-ups and schedule changes during the summer. But we have to look, and if I may, Dr. Casal, I think if you're so inclined to perhaps, bless you, have Mrs. Russo chair a committee, and I would work on that with Mr. Colicchio and representatives from the technology department. And if we're looking into moving it into the elementary schools, then I think we need input from the elementary principals. It's not something that is easily done, but I'm not going to say it can't be done or should not be done. This is something that has been talked about frequently in the last few years. As you said, this is a district and not a state requirement. It does fulfill one of the state requirements for fine performing
But
related
we
arts.
do have other classes.
Exactly, there are upper level, and the curriculum has expanded greatly in the area of technology, we're proud to say. So I think it's something that really requires a great deal of thought and planning, not over a long period of time, but it does require a very concentrated effort to figure out what our options are, where the space would be, and how we implement this, and what the impact would be on how we deliver this curriculum. So certainly I think we should probably start meeting tomorrow.
Sounds like a good idea, no problem with that.
Well, you know, the cost of textbooks is outlandish, especially in math and science. When do you think we should start looking into the possibility, feasibility of using electronic textbooks? And if they're any cheaper, I mean, who knows, maybe they're not even cheaper, but when do you think we should start to look into this?
Well, I would defer to Ian, perhaps, on the availability of the technology. That I think we have to have our business administrator look at the cost effectiveness of it. But as you know, textbooks for anybody who has children in college now, $7 textbooks are now $150. I mean, over the years, they just keep on growing. And as you know, at the college level, they change the issue, or the updates are constant. So, and in our school district, as the curriculum changes, the textbooks, in fact, the workbooks, and even in some places, the software have to keep pace with that. It's very expensive, as you know. So I think it's something that is easily answered once we get some information. I certainly will have that available at the next meeting, but call you ahead of time.
Yeah, if we
on
can
that.
find out if that would be feasible, maybe we could do a little experiment with some of the classes that might make use of them without abuse, you know, like the higher level math or science classes. Experiment with it, see how it works.
Just thinking out loud, the only problem would be the CD would be ideal for children taking those home and working on their computer, but in the classroom, we don't have any computer for every student or a laptop. We do have access to those textbooks for exercises, drills, problems. So it's something I think we have to talk about.
Well, they just have a textbook in class, and then
Yeah.
this goes home, and
Work
still
books,
save one
that type of
time,
thing.
you know.
Dr. Cassell.
May I make a comment? We already had someone come in to present at one of our curriculum meetings for social studies. And actually, the State Department is trying to guide us away from textbooks and into more electronic CDs and so forth. And it was amazing to see how current we would have our students stay by going with the software. I believe it was like $10 a child. So it's a big reduction in cost.
Is that using a Kindle? They use the Kindle?
No, it wasn't. It was actually a CD.
Oh,
So, but it holds so much, you know, on those CDs.
Yeah.
But it was something that we already looked at
Well, we did talk about a set of textbooks
for the class.
in the classroom. So if there were 4 social studies classes, you would need 4 sets, one for each class. You know, 4 different teachers teaching in different rooms. You would need a set of textbooks for each room.
But it would be a big savings.
If they taught simultaneously.
Correct.
If they didn't, you could just move the textbooks right here, just on a bookshelf.
And also, we
But
can
we
use,
still could save a ton of money, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So only-
that's what the presentation was all about.
Good.
and we can use the CDs with our smart boards in the classroom. The possibilities are limitless.
Good.
Dr. Cassell.
Yes.
To follow up on what my colleague said, in fact, Mrs. Zara just mentioned a pretty neat term called the possibilities. When I worked for Naval Intelligence, we had what they call futuristic directorates. And these were think tanks of people who would get together and plan operations for the future. Now here, as a school board, why don't we think about, if we're going to create a committee of educators and individuals on the school board and perhaps some people in public who will sit down and think 10, 15 years into the future as to where they want this district when it comes to electronics and technology. It's something that we might want to consider to prepare now.
It makes a lot of sense. You're talking 5 years from now.
5 years, 10 years from now, there's a lot of technology out there, as Mrs. Russo suggests, that we can use, and we ought to think about pulling something together to do that.
We can move in that direction, that's not a problem. Yes, Mr. Russo.
This is for Mr. Zara again. I understand the time commitment that this is taking this year with the half days, but moving forward, what are we anticipating to keep this current year to year?
Well, once we do this district-wide curriculum revision, then it would be incumbent upon the curriculum area coordinators, high school, middle school, and the elementary principals to stay current with the curriculum as we receive changes. And we may be eliminating a class that's no longer useful or relevant, and we may be adding a new one where we would have to do an individual curriculum and not across the board. So I think it's something that we all have to stay on top of.
But some of the questions I got at PTO meetings where the half days were concerned, the number of half days, which I think this is a massive undertaking for the 10 half days that were allotted. But moving forward, are you anticipating having half of that?
I would imagine that every year, as we've had in years past, perhaps 2 professional development days, back to where we were. But this is something that's really just staring us in the face, and it's begging to be fixed, and that's what we're doing.
Anyone else?
And one other thing, Dr., if I may. Thank you very much. Thank you. Also, as I've announced several times, we had everything in place for the H1N1, but the vaccine. The vaccine has arrived. I meeting with the health department last Tuesday. On Friday, and it is not mandatory, but it is voluntary, but every high school student who has parental permission will be inoculated with the H1N1 vaccine on Friday morning, and Friday early morning after that at the middle school, H1N1 vaccines. That evening, I believe, and again, this is separate and distinct from the school district, I believe at Parks and Recreation Building that inoculations for those people who qualify will be given at Parks and Rec. I believe that's the location, and I believe it's Friday evening. But on our end, at the school level, we are availing our schools to inoculate our high school and middle school students. It's 50% of our student population of 4,200 students, and we feel that's a wonderful bulwark for preventing the spread of H1N1 in the schools. And we've been stressing every other day. And again, that's this Friday, and then the elementary students and infants and parents in that high-risk group would have the option of going to the town inoculations that evening, I believe it is. Thank you.
Before we move on, I'd like to once again thank Mrs. Clerico and Mr. Cliccio for your time in this whole program. You're coming out here tonight to give us a little update, and hopefully you'll be back again. Now, feelings won't get hurt if you need to leave, because we understand that you're up very early in the morning. So I leave that up to you.
Now's your door.
You never know how long we're going to be here. Okay, at this time we come to a portion of our meeting where we allow members of the public to address the board. In this section, we allow questions and comments only to the resolutions addressed in tonight's agenda. Regulations allow for 20 minutes for these communications. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes. We ask you to try to stay within this requirement. Speakers may speak more than once only after everyone else has had an opportunity. And please be reminded that all comments must go through the chair. Remember to state your name and address when you first come up. At that time, anyone who wishes to be heard on the resolution items only.
Joan Rubino, 48 North Road. Schedule A, Natal Ferrara, School Residency, Resource and Safety Officer. I understand the School Residency and Safety Officer, but what's resource?
That's a term that we use. He is a school resource officer. He's a resource that our school administrators can go to regarding crisis resolution, any number of issues that can come up in high school, middle school primarily, but we have had him involved in issues at the elementary school as well. He is a very busy man in great demand to be a part of all that we do. Also, he coordinates with the Public Safety Department. He monitors our lockdown drills, where we practice Columbine-like situations with the Public Safety Department. He checks on residency.
That I understand.
Yes, but I mean, those are all part of his responsibilities.
Okay.
But the residency, he's really a school resident, a resource officer who handles residency and all other safety issues.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Aaron, can I add one into that? Sure. One, I think, very significant accomplishment of Mr. Ferrara was that he actually, before the issue of the police department developing a tactical plan even surfaced, he actually put together the plans in every single school to have these lockdown and safety drills. And when we took our tactical units to coordinate our drills with him, we were absolutely surprised how well coordinated the schools were, or how well coordinated he put this whole plan together for the schools. So that's I just didn't want that to be overlooked, because in this day and age, that's probably one of the most important resources that any school district could have. So I'd like to, you'd like to know that. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard on resolution items?
Good evening. Mike Russo, 11 Beach Street. Unfortunately, when I saw the agenda posted on the website on Friday, I noticed that the supporting documents, Schedule A, Appendix A, and Appendix B were not on the website. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take that opportunity now to read those over. So I apologize for the silence. I do have a question on Schedule A.
Yes.
The salaries that are listed for all the folks, do they represent a raise?
They represent a raise from the previous year, but that's for the 2009-2010 school year.
Across the board, everybody got a raise?
I believe so, everyone on this list, yes.
Do you know what the percentage was?
was equal to the settlement that the staff received. Generally, past practices have been, once the unit negotiates and settles, the district-wide personnel who really don't belong to any specific group are covered by the same terms of the settlement that we gave to the staff. That's been past practice.
So roughly 4%.
It's not 4%, but yes, you could say roughly 4%, but we also have a document for the public to look at that breaks down exactly what the settlement is, because with this 4%, 12% over 3 years being arbitrarily thrown around, it is not an accurate depiction of what we're doing. And I don't know if you get this one.
It's over there right now.
It breaks down exactly what the percentages were, what the different terms were. And we're actually working on a PowerPoint. We have, to have somebody else come in and go through it.
It would have been nice if I could have read this over the weekend. I don't think you want me to.
It's,
No, it would have been nice. Do you want me to take the time to read this now? In front of everybody? I don't understand why we couldn't have had this on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Why do we have to continually ask for these documents?
I don't know what to tell you, Mr. Russo, because I asked that the agenda be put up on the website.
Okay, I'll move on. There's a salary for Mr. David Wilson, who's the treasurer of school monies. Can you explain what that position is and how that differs from the business administrator?
Yeah, we have to, by law, you're required to have somebody else reconcile the accounts. The person who signs the check and signs the purchase orders can't be, and reconciles the account, can't be the same person. So the treasurer of school monies, he works with the bookkeeper and reconciling the accounts. He goes through all of the checks and reconciles them. If there's any outstanding ones, he keeps track of all those. And he does his treasurer's report is based on that.
Is he a full-time employee?
No, he gets a staff fee. I mean, he gets paid every month, every two times a month, just like everybody, all other employees.
So that $73.53 represents the entire
year,
Okay.
right? And he doesn't get any benefits. That's his what he's paid for the whole year.
Okay. And the other question I have on this Schedule A is regarding the school physicians, $27,000. What exactly do they do? And who do they report to? And are there any reports that document what exactly they do for the $27,000?
I can speak to that. We are required to have a physician. We have a school physician, Dr. Barry Kostowski, and we also have Dr. William Von Roth, who really is the athletic physician. I know from Dr. Von Roth, there's a state requirement that a physician be at every home football game, which he is. He also works with our athletic trainer on diagnosing and rehabilitation of all of our athletes. Dr. Kostowski is our, again, required that we have a school doctor to handle any and all issues. I've talked to him frequently regarding the H1N1. Anytime we have an issue or whatever it is that could impact on the schools, he's certainly available. And also, they are available for our parents that are in need, not for the physician. They have handled situations many times. So,
I think he also does training for the staff, the EpiPen and
exactly. He has reviewed some of our medical policies.
Does he do physicals too?
Used to, now that's changed. You're absolutely
He
right.
does the weight certifications.
Right, he does the weight certification for the rest of the team, Dr. Von Roth. He used to do all of the sports physicals for the entire school until the statute changed. Now the statute requires one physical per year, and children go to their own doctor. In the past, they had one every season, and he did those. He also does review all the physical cards with the athletic trainer.
Okay, thank you. I also have a question on the board secretary's reports of July 31st, August 31st, September 30th, and October 31st, Appendix A. I noticed that they are all dated, the submission date for each one of them is 11/30/09. Is that unusual for those reports all to be submitted on the same day and that late?
It's not unusual. I think in the past it was done that way. We did have a problem with our accounting software. There was an error that read in one of the months, so until we figured that out, and worked with the software company, that delayed it, and also with the audit. Once the audit was finished, we were able to do some entries that we had to wait for. But from now on, every month, there'll be like a December meeting, that they'll have November's and then so forth for the rest of the year.
Okay. And one last question on Appendix B, report of the treasurer. I noticed that the 7/31 report was dated November 20th, after the 8/31, 9/30, and 10/31 reports. I'm just questioning the sequence of these reports and the submissions. Why would the 7/31 report come after?
Those were the wrong dates. When we were doing them, we must not check those. Those should actually match. The reports, they were actually done, but they weren't dated, because we had to double check some of the entries. So we knew that what we had there. So that those reports should be dated same as the secretary's report.
Okay, fair enough. Lastly, Mr. DeVito, I assume this is going to be your last meeting?
Yes.
I wish you the best of luck over in Kearney.
Thank you.
I do have two younger brothers. Neither one of them lives in Kearney.
Okay, anyone else wish to be heard on resolution items only? Okay, seeing no one, close that portion of the meeting. Mr. Frank Paul, would you move superintendent resolutions 1 and 2, please?
Yes, Mr. President, I move superintendent resolutions 1 and 2 as so listed, so move.
Second. Any discussion?
I'd like to make discussion on number 2. Dr. Casale, you said past practice in answer to Mr. Russo's question from the audience. And I'd just like it stated that past practice does not automatically equate to future considerations. I want that vocalized, verbalized, written in the record, that business as usual has to change.
Well, we've said that several times, and as you know, or may not know, I don't recall if you were in the executive session from last meeting, we resolved it just simply wasn't fair to have individuals working for us for 5 months and then try to go into negotiations and do something out of the ordinary. But we all agreed that moving forward, these types of issues will be handled in a very different manner. So,
Thank you.
so noted. Anyone else, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Franicola?
Yes.
Mr. Kuchta?
Yes.
Mr. Mascartola?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Sorter?
Yes.
Mr. Sposato?
Yes.
Dr. Casale?
Yes. Mr. Russo, would you move superintendent addendum item number 3, please?
I move superintendent item number 3, appointment acting high school vice principal. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the appointment of Mr. Dennis Williams as acting high school vice principal for the remainder of the 2009-2010 school year at a stipend of $6,000 effective December 15, 2009. I so move.
Second. Second. Any discussion on this one?
Yes. I understand, Mr. Zara, the way that you work this out, there's going to be a considerable savings to the district.
Yes, I'll give you the very short version. We are losing a 12-month vice principal to retirement. That salary is $130,000 plus benefits. That individual will be replaced by a guidance counselor with a stipend as a lead guidance counselor. We have lost a 12-month vice principal to a principalship in another school district. That salary plus benefits was approximately $115. This individual is replacing that person. And also, I'd like to remind everybody that our 10-month vice principal spot, which is a $130,000 plus benefits position, is being manned by an interim at approximately $45,000 a year. So we are really trying to be frugal. And I have a confession to make. to the public that if anybody sitting here thinks that when I recommend a position that the board said no problem, go with it. That is not the case. I am questioned, grilled, maybe over 2 or 3 meetings before we can get to the point where we are now. So it is not an automatic okay for any recommendation I make regarding staffing or salaries. It is a very, very detailed investigation of the need and the cost. And I have to tell you, in the last couple of months, that investigation and questioning has increased because of the times we live in. So,
Mr. Zara, you mentioned need and cost. Let's talk a moment about the necessity to operate efficiently. I think that's important too. Could you share with the public?
Absolutely. I spent 27 years in high school, and I know the building well, particularly 4 as the vice principal and 5 as the principal. And there are 1,400 students in that building, and any number of issues or events could come to the surface immediately. We have a principal, certainly, and then we have a 12-month vice principal, and this is a position that will replace that. The 12-month vice principal is the academic position, does a great deal of evaluations, schedules the building, builds the schedule. He's starting in January, running right through August, and running those last 1,400 schedules for the opening of school. They deal with a number of issues and also help to oversee student activities. The 10-month vice principal handles primarily the freshmen and sophomores regarding discipline, and all attendance issues, all substitutes, anything that has to do with tardies, absences, unexcused absences, cuts, detention, in-school detention. And then the 12-month VP, which is in charge of guidance. As I said, we are eliminating that position. We have a retirement January 1, I believe the date is, and we are downsizing that position to a stipend for lead guidance counsel. So I believe it's a very cost-effective administrative regarding our administrative salaries at the high school. Thank you.
Thanks for the facts on this, Mr. Zara. Thank you.
Any other comment? Yes, Walt.
I guess I have to confess that I was the one who was most interested in appointing an acting vice principal. And, the reason for that is I want to be sure that we get someone there who can do the job and do it well. In the past, we have hired people, not in vice principal's position, but in other positions that we found later didn't do the job that well. And it was very disheartening and very costly. And I think under these circumstances, we'll have a person in there, we'll be able to see how well the job is done from now until June. And I have no reservations that he won't do a good job. I'm sure that he will, but then we can be confident that that will be continued and we can hire him on a full-time basis.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Any other comments or questions on this resolution? Call the roll.
Mr. Franicola?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Mascotolo?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Sauter?
Yes.
Mr. Sposato?
Yes.
Dr. Sal?
Yes. Mr. Sawyer, would you move business administrator resolutions 1 through 6, please?
Yes. Mr. President, I move business administrator resolutions 1 through 6. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Mr. Franicola?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Mascotolo?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Sauter?
Yes.
Mr. Sposato?
Yes.
Dr. Sal?
Yes. Mr. Cook, would you move business administrator's resolution number 7, addendum item number 7, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Settlement agreement, Sean Reed Construction Company, Inc. Be resolved that the Board of Education accept and memorialize the recommendation of its construction attorney for the settlement agreement with Sean Reed Construction Company, Inc. Be it further resolved that the Nutley Board of Education approve said settlement agreement, subject to review of closing documents evidencing said settlement agreement by the construction attorney. We authorize the business administrator / board secretary to sign the agreement and issue the appropriate payment pursuant to the settlement agreement. I so move.
For a second.
Mr. President.
Any discussion?
I thought we were going to resolve that. I thought we were going to mention it, but it wasn't going to be written. I think we could mention it for the record, that it was a mention of $440,000 amount. So it's on the record, but not being written. I'm correct?
Yes.
Okay.
you need to make something perfectly clear. This is part of the referendum. These are referendum funds, and it's part of the closing out of the middle school project. Okay, just because people see that word settlement, you get a little.
Mr. President, may I add, follow up what you said?
Yes.
We are within, it's within budget, so we're not going over the referendum, and we're not going to have to touch any other money to complete the project.
Absolutely. Just wanted to make that clear. Thank you. Yes.
And we also add that this is for services rendered.
Yes. Do you want to add to that? You sure? You talk too much. Anyone else? All the way.
Racco,
Yes.
Yes.
Roll call.
Yes or no?
I had a question.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't document the dollar amount. We know it's within the budget. We know it was from the middle school referendum, but it was part of negotiation regarding a settlement.
Closing out the project for the middle school.
And I had liberty to say that it was for that word, legal. This comes from, no,
No, it's not for that.
I'm sorry?
That's not what it, this is for services provided.
But it came out of the report that we received from, what are we going with that?
In other words, why don't we let the public know what we're doing?
We still let people know what we're doing.
You can't just,
I know that, but this is so frustrating. This
it may be frustrating, but you can't, you cannot.
I'm agreeing with you. Why don't we let the
contrary
public
to
know
law.
what we can let them know, and
We did, it's for
this is the
services.
secret.
That's not a question to me, it's secret.
Let me ask a question. Is there anyone sitting on the board, sitting here, that would like to add anything to this? I mean, I thought we covered it in the explanation.
I thought we just added all the extras just
No,
now.
it's not a question of adding it, it was a question of saying this comes from,
For what? The referendum.
Attorney
the referendum
recommendation?
from what?
But if
Referendum?
And litigation?
If I may, the contractors had a certain amount that they thought they were due. We thought there was a certain amount that we were due then, and both sides negotiated the final amount.
That's all I want to say, is that it's part of litigation, it came out, and
It's not litigation.
it came out of the litigation.
It's
that
not
we're talking about.
litigation.
Negotiation.
It is not
Negotiation.
It
litigation.
came out of litigation that we negotiated.
We avoided litigation by.
Negotiate.
We avoided litigation.
And you avoid arbitration also.
This is
You asked if there was any board members that would like anything added to this that's not in here. I would like the dollar amount added to this.
Said the dollar amount, 440,000.
Why is it not?
I believe on our attorney's advice is the reason why there is no dollar amount being put onto that. So if you want to ask that, it's okay. I think take a poll. I'd have to go with the attorney's advice and say no. But if you want to go around the table,
Yeah.
I would suggest
Yeah,
we do it.
One question I have to follow up on what Mr. Russo, what I'm concerned about, trying to get straight. We're voting on a resolution which appears to be an open dollar amount. Now, I know what the attorney said, but it just baffles me as to why we can't put the figures in the resolution if that's the amount of money that we're voting on. What if, I mean, is there a possibility that this figure could change?
May I point out, not this attorney. Just so you wonder why Mr. Smock not weighing in on this.
Yeah, so
Does
that's.
it not say the attorney settlement agreement,
Right.
what they agreed upon?
Why don't we have it in the resolution that we're voting on?
Because he suggested that we don't do it, and if we don't, why are we paying them if we don't take his
Legal
advice?
counsel.
Right.
I think that's why we hired him. I believe it's a legal issue.
We have one meeting and one discussion. Mr. DeVita, could you make this any clearer?
The attorney said that we shouldn't put a dollar amount in because there's other things that go into the settlement agreement. That we're not just gonna give them $440,000 and say, all right, goodbye. There's a whole agreement here that's gonna be signed by both parties. That they have to provide us and make sure that all liens are all cleaned up and paid off by this money, so the board isn't liable in any of that. That's all gonna be in the settlement, and it's gonna be signed by myself or board secretary and John Wright.
This is basically, we're agreeing to the terms of settlement as a result of mediation and closing out the middle school project. The contractor had certain change orders that he felt he was entitled to. We had a number that we budgeted for, and our accounting system came up with a different number. And we mediated and came to a fair resolution, which is well within the budget and satisfactory to everybody. So what we're doing tonight, as part of the mediation process, is an act of good faith that we intend to enter into the settlement. No funds can be spent by the district until we vote on it. So when we have a rock-solid number, which is approximately $440,000, when we find out it's $442.67, for example, then this body will vote on it again in order to pay that money. So is that any more clear?
Thank you.
Very clear myself.
That's good. Very good.
So, having said all that, and having it moved and seconded, is there any other discussion? And let me just remind my members, once we start to vote, moving forward from this point, there will be no more discussion. When I ask for discussion, that's when you speak up. If you miss the vote, you miss the vote. Call the roll.
Mr. Franicola.
Yes, again.
Mr. Pivetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mascartola.
Yes.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Mrs. Russo.
Yes.
Mr. Sawyer.
Yes.
Mr. Spizzato.
Yes.
Dr. Sal.
Yes. Mr. Spizzato, would you move Business Administrator number 8, please?
Sure. Approval of partial payment to Bill Leary Air Conditioning and Heating. Be resolved that the Board of Education approves the partial payment to Bill Leary Air Conditioning and Heating in the amount of $100,000 for the Washington Elementary School and $100,000 for Lincoln Elementary School, as per recommendation of the Board Construction Attorney and Mediator. Be it further resolved that payment be released only after Bill Leary Air Conditioning and Heating supplies the Business Administrator with as-built construction drawings for Washington Elementary School, Lincoln Elementary School, and John Walker Franklin Middle School. Be again further resolved that this also subject to receipt of appropriate documentation to cover the outstanding municipal mechanical lien claims of Starlight Electric.
Second.
And a second, okay. What this resolution does is gives a partial payment to Bill Leary Air Conditioning and Heating as part of the HVA heating, air conditioning, and ventilation services in the referendum. In return, if you notice, there's a clause in there that says, Bill Leary will be providing us with as-built construction drawings for Washington, Lincoln, and Walker Middle School. The significance of that is when we have the as-built drawings, we will be able to compare that to the design, which was done by DCM, and the reports from our independent engineers that studied all of these projects, so that we can begin to uncover and document what is a design flaw and what may be an installation flaw. This is part of the process of recouping some of the funds that were spent on HVAC at Lincoln, Washington, and Walker Middle School. Having said that, any other discussion?
Very well put.
Any other discussion? Any questions? Call the roll.
Mr. Franicola.
Yes.
Mr. Cookta.
Yes.
Mr. Mascartola.
Yes.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Mrs. Russo.
Yes.
Mr. Sawyer.
Yes.
Mr. Spizzato.
Yes.
Dr. Sal.
Yes. This portion of the meeting, have a hearing of citizens on any school matter. This portion of the meeting is restricted to 20 minutes. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. We ask that you try to stay within those confines and direct all comments through the chair. If you wish to speak a second time, we ask that you just wait until everyone else has had an opportunity to speak. So if someone would like to.
At the last meeting, there was some discussion about the detention. I thought it was over, but I read in the Nutley Sun that you're going to consider community service possibly for parents. Now, is that anything that's on the table? Yes, it was in the Nutley Sun.
You know, I only wish I could hold parents responsible for what goes on in school. Not just I teach in Clifton. I only wish we could do that. I think that was a miscommunication.
Well, the Nutley Sun evidently is not doing a very good job.
People make mistakes.
Yeah, you know, you only wish you'd have the ACLU here, or any school, faster than you could say ACLU. I have another question. I have a printout here that the Board of Education is $500,000 in the red. Is that true?
That's another story that should have started with once upon a time, because it's absolutely not true. We had our auditor here, we had an account, we had an $800,000 plus surplus as of the close of the books.
How does this information get about? I mean, I don't know where this came from. It was given to me by somebody, and well, it was. I think it was on maybe a website or handed out for a PTO kind of thing.
I had a discussion. Let me interrupt you, and you could continue. But that was, I believe, reported on NJ Hometown.
Okay.
And I had a discussion with Phil White about it, because when I saw it, of course.
Okay.
And I saw red because it wasn't true. And he told me that, in the article, it said that 2 board members disclosing confidential information from a closed session revealed that we were $500,000 in the red, whatever. And I asked him if that was in fact true, and he said, well, you know, I'm a newspaper man. I can't really reveal my sources, but it really was only one. And I said, well, who? And of course he wouldn't tell me. And we had a discussion. I told my board members, nobody remembers having that conversation. So again, and the bottom line is, it's not true.
Okay. That's all I'm interested in, finding out what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else except Terry Clark? He's here. Sorry.
Terry Clark, 45 Hampton Place, President, spokesperson in Nutley Parent Advocacy Network. I just have, first of all, I would like to agree with Mrs. Russo. I do believe in computer application classes. My district does do it from first grade on. And I have to tell you, one day I had to go in to speak to the computer teacher, and I walked in during a time when the kids were presenting their PowerPoint presentations. It was 6th grade, and if I tell you how great they were, and I am so computer stupid, I didn't even know where to begin, but they are, when you teach them young, they really do well. I just have 2 questions. One's on recommendations, and it's for Mr. Zara. I know that this gets sticky, but if your policy on anyone, district personnel, whether it be administrators or anything, about giving recommendations to parents in regards to getting evaluations, or what is your policy on that?
I'm not quite sure I'm following you. Is it college recommendations?
No, actually it's not college. It's actually like for a parent to go for tutoring, or for send their child for tutoring. Do you allow or you permit your teachers to make those kinds of recommendations to parents, or is it really, in my district, it's really hands-on?
I wouldn't advise that.
Okay, because it's always been my understanding that whatever the district recommends, they have to pay for it.
I wouldn't advise that.
Okay. And the next thing is, what is the board's policy in regards to emergency certifications? Has that come down?
Emergency certification?
I just don't know what the story is about that right now. Are they still in effect?
There are 2 somewhat along those lines of emergency, and that's certainly the alternate route,
right,
where people do gain a position teaching, even though they're not fully certified, but they're in a program either through the State Department of Education or the colleges or universities, where they are mentored and they take classes as they're going through the processes. Once they successfully complete the courses and have good evaluations, then they can get their certificate of eligibility and then their permanent certificate. The other is emergency certification, which we really don't use. I mean, we have expedited, that's the other type, where somebody has their paperwork tied up in Trenton, we have an opening, it's a discipline that you really can't get an awful lot of choice. We need somebody's available to qualify, that's the key, to qualify. We can expedite the paperwork by telling the state we do have a position for them if we can get the paperwork cleared up. So alternate route and expediting, but as emergency certification, those are few and far between.
Right, and it wouldn't include special education positions, would
No,
they?
I think maybe some years ago you might, but not
Right.
now. I think
That was
there's
my
certainly,
understanding.
I think what we're looking at is the job force
Right.
now, and certainly even people who have never taught people who might have certification or might entertain a career change. That's something that we would look at if they're qualified and if they are involved in an alternate route program, which is a legitimate, established, monitored, and state-approved program.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anyone else except somebody wearing Yankee sweatshirt?
Mike Russo, 11 Main Street. Regarding the settlement agreement for, is it Chanry? What were the dates of the services rendered, and what type of work did they actually do?
Well, he was the general contractor from the inception. From
Middle school.
Middle school.
Okay. And regarding the settlement with Bill Leary, you mentioned recouping funds from somebody. From whom?
Design flaws, we would need to deal with the designer. Installation flaws, we'd be dealing with the contractor, but we're preparing documentation. So part of the agreement is that he's agreed to provide us with documentation that we absolutely need.
And that's not a settlement agreement with the Leary, that's just a partial payment.
Yeah, that's not a settlement, it's a partial payment, and
We're still,
How much money is still outstanding to them?
to them, there's 77,000 in their contract balance.
77 after the 200?
Yeah, after this,
Okay.
yeah.
And then, I have a question regarding the new interim VA. I understand she's coming from Kearney, and I understand Mr. DeVita is going to Kearney. She become available after you accepted the position?
what happened was we gave Mike DeVita 2 draft picks for the VA. Now, as it just worked out, I'm sorry, as it works out, in the pool of applicants for our position, she was in there. It wasn't that, it's just a strange coincidence. There was no pre-planned or so you could see.
I mean, was she fired from Kearney?
No, no.
There was a VA there?
Actually, we can't comment on that.
Well, we can't comment on any contractual situation.
But I can tell you this, when we did seek an interim business administrator, because very much as the acting vice principal, this board did not want to jump into a replacement for Mr. DeVita. They wanted to really think the process through what we're looking for. We contacted the Association of School Business Administrators. They gave us a list of approximately 40 interims. We advertised. We received approximately 10 applications. We narrowed those down to 3 that we thought were promising. The woman that eventually was appointed as the interim with the board was one of those 3. The first individual in the interview said he only wanted to work 2 days a week. That's not going to fit the bill. The second individual wanted $90 an hour, and sometimes we have 15-hour days around here, so that didn't fit the bill. What we looked for was somebody that had good fit. I personally checked references, and this really was vetted out in front of the full board because it's business administrator, but also board secretary. So of all of our employees in this district, the business administrator, board secretary has the most interaction with the board. And everybody at the table was involved in the interview process, and everybody at the table really voiced the recommendation. And I agree with the recommendation. I think right now, she is the person that comes to us with the right experience at the right time. And and I don't know what the future holds for her or us, but right now she's our interim business administrator. And I think it's more coincidence that there was this change.
If I may just comment one thing on what the superintendent said, out of the 40 people that the School Administrators Association provided us, 80% of them did not want to work in Essex County. So it was like either Bergen or Hudson or whatever, but Essex County was limited. So when we got done with that pool, we had about 20%, which was about 8 people from the pool of 40. And then when the advertisements came in, it was a few, and like Joe said, the rest is history. As far as that. So it wasn't as, I mean, it was extensive, we thought, not as extensive as we want to go for full-time down the road for, you know, to really look into it. But it's just like, it just gives you a wake-up when you look at what you have out there. And you advertise this.
And that, as you said, when you microphone through email, that this is a very, very large enterprise between budget, salaries, facilities, not to minimize our educational mission, because that's a priority, but we know we need the business side of the house to be in order. So we're taking our time.
And I've said publicly before that, I mean, the 105 that he was making, I think he's making 127, and I think she was making 123, and the 550 times whatever it is, 550 a day, comes up to 130 something. So that position is worth much more, in my opinion, than 105. I think we need to take that into consideration.
Yes, well, yeah, I don't want you to walk away with the impression that we took her because she was like all we could get.
No.
I want to tell you, that when she was interviewed, I was impressed by her. I mean, I thought she really had a work ethic, and she was going to do the job, no fooling around.
I'd like to see a second on it, so. I'd like to second that, and Kearney's actually a slightly bigger district, the budget is slightly larger than Nutley's, and she also had experience in Hudson County as the Hudson County BA. So besides Kearney.
She was the county business administrator for Hudson County.
By the way, I just want to go on record as saying, I had asked at the board meeting, I think it was November 5th or something like that, I had asked about the contracts, including Mr. DeVita's, that had expired on June 30th. And at the time, you had said, well, he wasn't complaining about the fact that he didn't get a raise. I think he gave his resignation the next day. Just one more. I have one last comment on the H1. I just had to. I have a question on the H1N1 vaccine. I understand the Board of Health giving that vaccine. I understand that it's convenient to do it in schools. My understanding is that the student population is not really a high-risk population. It's really geared. And I'm questioning why we're doing this in the schools.
That's something.
And one last question. I'm sorry. Regarding the waiver, I understand the parents are going to have to sign a waiver, and I'm assuming, with the town council here, I'm assuming that waiver will take away all the liability for the school district.
That's correct.
And those inoculations are being given by health department personnel. The school is only housing the inoculations. And also, I had the same question when I went to the meeting, because I know that the middle school and high school age children are not in a high-risk group. But apparently, they've had an abundance of vaccine, and they know that in the schools, certainly this is an area where it's very easy to transmit colds, flu, and they thought that it would be a good target. It was a medical decision, and I can't speak to that other than I was surprised also, but that was the explanation I was given.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Stephen Garrikoff, 7 down the court. I don't have a question. I have a comment about using computers over textbooks. I mean, I'm leaving this year. It doesn't really matter to me, but if a kid's computer goes down, he can't do anything. So I just wanted to really make that comment, because I mean, I know my freshman year, I had my mythology notebook. I was getting a new computer, I had no internet, nothing. Like, my teacher had to be nice and let me extend it until I finally got everything up and running. So I wanted to let you know, like, it's not always a good thing to be using old computers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, of course. All right, anyone else see, you want to close this portion of the meeting? Any old business?
The old business before Mike leaves, one question I've been asking, I want to know if we're at any stage now with grant writer, and before you leave, are we informing our new BA? I mean, who's doing the search, who's looking, what's going on with the grant writer?
Yeah, well, from our RFPs, we had 2 people respond, so we'll bring both of them in. I assume we want them to give a presentation to the full board, so we can schedule them to come in. And I guess go from there. I know that there were some issues that some questions that arose. I was working on them with Mr. Ramondo. So I'll check with him on where we stand with those, and then we can bring them in for presentations.
Okay, I just want to make sure it doesn't get lost in the time. Also, I mean, I don't know if this is the time to say, but we wait for new business to say, thank Mike for
Did you
his...
say nice things about Michael?
I got nothing nice to say.
Well, no, I'm going to make sure we adjourn before that happens, but no, don't think I'm going to business.
I just want to say, for my short period of time, Mike, I just, wish you good luck, and it was nice doing business with you.
Any other old business?
Mr. President, I have a couple items.
Old and new?
Old first and new second.
Okay.
How about an update on our website? Any information as to how we're progressing?
Well, we received, how many we received? 5? 4 proposals. That we have discussed them a little bit in closed session. And then we got another proposal from Ian to do the work in-house. And then the board hasn't really discussed it since then. So I just want to set up a time for go back down to close and have the board discuss his proposal.
If not tonight, Mr. President,
Well, we could certainly put that on the agenda for the next meeting. Have a website presentation from Ian, that's not a problem. We can do that. Any other old business? New business?
I have a couple items of new business. I think it was Saturday night, some of my colleagues, including Mrs. Russo, attended the Hockey Rooster Club beefsteak. When we left the building, Mrs. Russo, by the way, it's at 44 Park Avenue, Immigration. Mrs. Russo pointed towards a trailer. She says, look, there's antennas and cameras, and I had a Wolf Blitzer moment. And decided to run towards the trailer with Mrs. Russo, and we found something very, very pleasant, very surprising, and very, very good insofar as the school district is concerned. There's an 11th grader named Jason Levine, and I have a list of students' names here, that are heading up a project called Stuff a Bus. And these youngsters, from December 4th to December 11th, are sleeping in that bus, collecting toys, looking to load as many buses as they could. Now, I think that's a great thing, and I am going to call News 12 tomorrow for those who are interested in my media life. And I'm going to let them know that these youngsters are doing a fine job, and I'm hoping that they will cover their story. And we have a couple of reporters here. I would ask that you also kind of take a visit down there, because these kids are really putting a lot of time and effort and work into this project. I think it's a great thing. And Ms. Russo, what do you think?
I agree. I saw the cameras. I know that's a switch, and I walked over there to see what was going on. I had no idea there was 92.3 buses and campers set up. And we went over and asked the boy, Jason, what's going on. He was articulate, determined, an amazing young man. I'm proud that he's in Nutley High School. He's making a huge sacrifice. It's freezing outside, and he's spending 24/7, aside from his classes, sleeping there to load up. His goal is to hit 10 buses. He wants to load them up with toys for tots. So I hope our community comes together and helps him out and he reaches his goal, because that's an amazing young man. I think he's going to be a future leader, and that was thanks for this job. The opportunity to see something like that, they say it's a thankless job. That was thanks enough to see someone working hard like that and making a difference in the community.
And I have the list of names I'd like to pass to you, Mrs. Arif. We can have them come to some future board meeting. And this youngster, by the way, this Jason Levine, he told us that he wants to go to the Naval Academy. That's the type of, that's the product we're getting out of the school district, somebody who's shooting for the stars. And he also wants to join the Marines after he graduates the Naval Academy. So that was a pretty neat moment for all of us.
He is a junior, and he has already filled up one bus, and he is His goal is 10, and I believe he will meet that goal. And I know that the middle school and the high school are collecting gifts, and people have been dropping them off. He is a remarkable young man. He's also with our choral groups, and he's an excellent student. And, while Mr. Rogers was in the Navy, he wants to go to Annapolis. I was in the Army, and I wanted to go to West Point, so we'll discuss that in the
Did we
future.
beat you this year, though, in football?
Yes.
And one other thing, Mr. President?
Yes.
I noticed, I guess over the past few months, in speaking with some of our state representatives in Trenton, that there are a heck of a lot of bills being proposed that are going to impact school districts. And some of these legislative proposals are not going to impact us positively. So I've suggested to the president of this board that we establish a legislative review committee, which would include board members and residents of the public, that will sit down, review these proposals, analyze them, come up with some sort of a report to the entire school board insofar as the impact it would have on our district, and then take it a step further. Get a sense from the board as to whether we support a bill or we oppose a bill, and let those Senate and Assembly committees know what our position is. I don't think that we speak loud enough to the legislators in Trenton with regard to the proposals that they have that are going to negatively, or in some cases positively, impact us. So I propose that to the president of the board. As far as I know, you're in favor of establishing such a committee, and when I asked that we would do that as soon as possible, get these things done.
Then we may need to involve Assemblyman Scalera's office in that as well, so he can help us keep abreast of exactly what's happening. So that's a good idea. Anyone interested in that can forward a letter to the board office. Also, I've received 6 letters of interest for the steering committee for the permanent BA, and I'll be sending a letter out real soon to everyone on that. We want to get some guidelines down as to how we're going to proceed. But I want to emphasize again, it's not a race. We're going to take as much time as necessary. We're going to look at as many resources as necessary to get a good permanent fit. Any other new business?
I'd just like to
Now it's Michael.
wish Michael the best of luck in working with you up 2.5 years, and good luck in Kearney.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
And Mike, certainly a pleasure working with you. If you need any coverage in Kearney, let me know. We'll get it there for you. But great job. Really a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Mike, it was a pleasure working with you. We had a lot of fun. And remember, get that picture signed with Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus.
Anyone else?
Yes, if I may. Michael's done a wonderful job. He's an outstanding young man. I'm calling more and more people young men and young women lately. I'm aging quickly, but he's an outstanding young man who really has served this district very well. I think in many of these positions, particularly in the business administrator, the requirements, the demands of the job are far different than they were a few years ago. In an era of reduced funding and greater costs, school construction, litigation, so many different issues. He's done a very, very good job. He's very organized, very accurate, and very methodical in his approach. And we're going to miss Michael. But of course, 2 weeks from now, we say, I'll never forget what's his name. Teasing you, Michael. We're going to miss you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Michael, good luck. I know you and I have had a lot of discussions in a lot of different positions on many things, and it's very helpful and very healthy. But one thing I've always said to many people that I've met, that your honesty and your integrity was always out there. And I still mean that, and I think you did a great job for them, so good luck.
Good luck, Mike.
Thanks.
Now it's my turn. Let me tell you something. It's always a pleasure to see your smiling face, and I mean that seriously, because you came in and filled a spot that was at very best questionable, and we had a lot of issues, we had a lot of unresolved issues, we had a lot of questions about construction, and you rose to the task. You provided this board with the information we needed. You worked very well with our board attorneys, plural. Anytime I picked up the phone and had a question, if you didn't have the answer, you got back to me as quickly as possible, and Mr. Muscaratola sums it up, and talks about your character and your honesty is unreproachable. And I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss sitting here trying to make you laugh when you have to read something. And good luck in Carney. And if you ever want to come back, forget it. It's a long way to Anyone else? Any business? Motion to adjourn. Second?
Second, favor?